After the accident, I pretended to be unconscious in that hospital bed. The doctors said I was in a coma, completely unaware. But I heard everything. I heard the board members whispering about hostile takeovers. I heard my so-called friends discussing who would get my penthouse. I heard nurses talking about me like I was already gone. Then one evening, a black single father walked into my room to empty the trash and said something that shattered every wall I had spent 40 years building. My name is Alexander Chen, and this is the story of how I learned what it means to be truly wealthy. The night of the accident, I had been leaving the annual Tech Innovators Gala where I was being honored as Entrepreneur of the Year. Cameras had flashed. Investors had congratulated me. I had delivered a speech about disruption and success that received a standing ovation. At 43, I was the founder and CEO of Chen Technologies, a software empire worth $4.7 billion. Wall Street Journal had profiled me. Politicians courted my endorsements. Business school students studied my strategies. But when my driver turned onto the parkway that night, a delivery truck ran a red light and slammed into my Mercedes. Metal crumpled. Glass exploded. And Alexander Chen, the man who controlled billions, suddenly controlled nothing at all. I remember the impact. The airbag deploying. The world spinning. Then darkness. When I came to, I was in a hospital bed. Machines hummed around me. Monitors beeped steadily. My head throbbed. My ribs screamed with every breath. But I was conscious. Fully, completely conscious. I tried to open my eyes, and that is when I heard them. If he doesn't wake up within 72 hours, we need to discuss contingency plans. The voice belonged to Michael Brennan, my chief operating officer. He had worked for me for 12 years. I had made him a millionaire. His shares alone control the company. Another voice. Richard Kim, my legal counsel. Without a clear succession plan, the board could move to appoint interim leadership. Interim meaning us. Michael's voice carried a smile I had heard 1,000 times in boardrooms. The smile of someone who had just seen an opportunity. I should have opened my eyes. Should have sat up and fired them both on the spot. But something stopped me. A cold, calculated instinct that had served me well in business. If I stayed silent, if I pretended to remain unconscious, I would learn the truth. I would see who these people really were when they thought I could not hear them. So I kept my eyes closed. Kept my breathing steady. And listened. The doctors say it could go either way, Richard continued. Severe head trauma. They are monitoring for brain activity, but right now it is too early to tell. How long do we have? Michael asked. Before what? Before we need to secure our positions. I have been running operations for a decade. If Chen is incapacitated, the board should recognize that continuity requires keeping current leadership in place. They were already planning. Already positioning themselves to take what I had built. Let us wait 48 hours, Richard said. See what the doctors say. But you are right. We should be prepared. The door closed behind them. I lay in the darkness, my body aching, my mind racing. I had built Chen Technologies from nothing. I had worked 20-hour days for years. I had sacrificed relationships, health, everything to create an empire. And these men I had trusted, were already circling like vultures. The visitors continued throughout that first day. Serena Martinez, my vice president of marketing, came by with flowers and left after 3 minutes, spending most of that time on her phone discussing a product launch as if I were already irrelevant. Thomas Wu, who I had considered a friend, stopped by to pay his respects, but I heard him take photos. For social media, I realized. Proof that he had been here, content for his followers, performative grief. My ex-wife, Catherine, arrived in the afternoon with her new husband. They did not stay long. How much do you think he is worth now? Her husband whispered. More than when we divorced, Catherine replied. I should have fought harder for equity instead of taking the cash settlement. They laughed quietly. Both of them. Laughed while I lay there supposedly unconscious. I had loved Catherine once. Or I thought I had. We had married young when I was still building the company. She had supported me then, or so I believed. But as the wealth grew, so did the distance between us. She wanted a husband. I wanted an empire. When she filed for divorce 7 years ago, I had been almost relieved. One less distraction from the work. Now, hearing her whisper about money while standing beside my hospital bed, I understood something I had avoided for years. I had turned every relationship in my life into a transaction. Love became prenuptial agreements. Friendship became networking opportunities. Family became shareholders. I had built my empire so high that I had forgotten what it was like to stand on solid ground. By the second day, I had made my decision. I would continue pretending. I would remain unconscious until the doctors decided to run more tests or until someone tried to pull the plug. Whichever came first. I wanted to see how far they would go. How quickly the people I had enriched would move to take what was mine. It was a test. A final audit of my life. And I was failing spectacularly. Late on the second evening, after the nurses had finished their rounds and the hospital had grown quiet, I heard the door open. Footsteps entered. Different from all the others. Slower. Hesitant. The sound of work boots on linoleum. Sorry, just need to empty the trash real quick. The voice was deep, gentle, with a slight southern accent. I did not recognize it. I heard him move around the room. The rustle of a trash bag. The soft clink of the bin being replaced. Then silence. I assumed he had left. But after a moment, I heard him speak again. I do not know if you can hear me, sir, but I was there. The night of your accident. My attention sharpened. I was driving home from my daughter's school play when I saw it happen. Pulled over soon as I could. You were conscious for a few seconds. Looked right at me. Then you were gone. He moved closer. I could hear him settling into the chair beside my bed. The doctors, they say you probably cannot hear anything. That you are in some kind of deep sleep. But I do not believe that. He paused. My wife, she was in a hospital bed like this 3 years ago. Cancer. The doctors said the same thing. Said there was no point in talking to her. But I talked to her anyway. Every single day until she passed. And I believe she heard me. I believe she knew I was there. Something shifted in my chest. This man, this stranger, was not here for my money. He was not here for connections or opportunities. He did not even know who I really was. My name is Marcus, he continued. I work here. Maintenance mostly. Cleaning, repairs, whatever needs doing. Not glamorous work, but it is honest. Keeps food on the table for my daughter. He was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke again, softer this time. I held your hand that night, sir. While we waited for the ambulance. You were scared. I could see it in your eyes. So I told you what I tell my daughter when she is afraid. I told you that you were going to be okay. That someone was there with you. That you were not alone. I felt something I had not felt in years. My throat tightened even though no muscle moved. My chest constricted even though my body remained still. I do not know why I came in here tonight, Marcus said. My shift ended 20 minutes ago. I should be picking up my daughter from my neighbor's place. But something told me I should check on you. Make sure you were okay. He stood up. I heard the chair scrape against the floor. So I guess I just wanted to say that. You are not alone, sir. Even if you cannot hear me. Even if you never wake up. Someone was there with you that night. Someone is here with you now. And that has to count for something. The door opened and closed. His footsteps faded down the hallway. I lay in the darkness, my carefully constructed test suddenly feeling hollow. For 2 days I had listened to people discuss my worth in dollars and shares. I had heard every fake expression of concern, every whispered calculation of what they might gain from my death. But this man, this janitor named Marcus, had spoken to me as if I were simply a human being. Not a billionaire. Not a CEO. Just a person who had been afraid. And he had held my hand. I could not remember the last time someone had touched me without wanting something in return. The next evening, Marcus returned. I heard his familiar footsteps enter the room, heard him empty the trash, heard him settle into the chair beside my bed. "Evening, sir." Me again. I found myself waiting for his voice, needing it in a way I could not explain. Had a long day today. 3 floors to clean by myself because 2 guys called in sick. My back is killing me, but I cannot complain. Work is work. Some people, they look down on what I do. Cleaning toilets, mopping floors. But I tell myself, someone has to do it. And maybe, just maybe, when a patient wakes up in a clean room, that is one less thing they have to worry about. He shifted in his chair. My daughter, she asked me tonight why I always come home so tired. She is 8. Smart as a whip. Wants to be a doctor someday. Can you imagine? My little girl, a doctor. His voice filled with pride. I told her that Daddy works hard so she can have a better life. So she can go to college. So she does not have to clean floors like me. And you know what she said? He laughed softly. She said, "But Daddy, your job is important. You help people feel better by making things clean. That is like what doctors do, right?" I felt my frozen heart crack just a little. Kids, man. They see the world so differently. No judgment. No looking down on people. They just see what is true. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then his voice grew heavier. "I want to tell you about my wife. Her name was Jennifer. Jen, I called her. We met when we were 16. High school sweethearts. Everyone said we were too young to know what love was. But we knew. God, we knew." He took a breath. "We got married right after graduation. I was working construction. She was a receptionist at a dental office. We did not have much, but we had each other. That was enough." His voice cracked slightly. Then Destiny came along. Our daughter. The day she was born was the happiest day of my life. Jen looked at me holding that baby girl, and she said, "We made something beautiful, Marcus. We made something that will outlive us both." He paused. 3 years ago, Jen started feeling tired. Real tired. We thought maybe she was just working too hard. But then she started losing weight. Getting sick. We went to the doctor and they ran tests. I knew what was coming. I wanted to stop him, to tell him he did not have to relive this. But I could not move. Could not speak. Could only listen. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. They gave her 6 months. She made it 8. His voice was barely a whisper now. Toward the end, she could not talk anymore. The doctors said she was unconscious. Said there was no awareness. But I sat with her anyway. Every single day. I told her about Destiny. About what our daughter did at school. About how much I loved her. About how I was going to make sure Destiny grew up knowing her mother was a fighter. He cleared his throat. The night before she died, I was holding her hand. Just sitting there in the dark. And I swear, I felt her squeeze my fingers. Just once. So faint I almost missed it. But I felt it. His voice broke. She heard me. All those days, all those hours I sat there talking to her. She heard me. She knew she was not alone. I felt tears gathering behind my closed eyelids. Tears I could not let fall. Tears that burned like fire. That is why I come here, sir. That is why I talk to you. Because maybe, just maybe, you can hear me too. Maybe you know someone is here. And maybe that matters. He stood up slowly. I have to go pick up Destiny. But I will be back tomorrow. I made you a promise that night. I told you that you were going to be okay. And I do not break my promises. The door closed behind him. In the suffocating silence that followed, I understood something fundamental. I had been testing everyone. Judging them. Calculating their worth. But Marcus, this man who had nothing to gain from me, was the only one who had passed a test I did not even know I was administering. He had shown up. Not for money. Not for opportunity. But because he believed kindness mattered. And he was teaching me, a man worth $4.7 billion, what it meant to be rich. The fourth evening brought something unexpected. Marcus arrived earlier than usual, and I heard a second set of footsteps beside his. Lighter. Quicker. A child's footsteps. "Sorry about this, sir. My neighbor had an emergency and I could not find anyone else to watch Destiny. I hope you do not mind." A small voice piped up. "Daddy, is this the man from the accident?" "Yes, baby. This is Mr. Chen. Remember, we need to be quiet and respectful." "But he is sleeping. Can he hear us?" "I believe he can, sweetheart. So let us talk to him nicely." I heard the scraping of a chair being pulled closer to the bed. Then I felt something that made my breath catch. A small, warm hand touching mine. "Hi, Mr. Chen. My name is Destiny. I am 8 years old. My daddy says you were in a car accident, but you are going to be okay because you are strong." This child's voice was high and sweet, filled with innocent certainty. "I brought you something. It is a picture I drew. It has flowers and a rainbow and a butterfly. My teacher says I am a really good artist. I put it on your table so you can see it when you wake up." Marcus spoke softly. "That is very thoughtful, Destiny. Daddy, do you think he is lonely?" "Why do you ask, baby?" "Because he is all alone in here. No one is talking to him except you. It must be scary to be alone when you are hurt." Her words cut through me like a knife. I had built an empire. I had accumulated billions. I had achieved everything I had set out to achieve. But this 8-year-old child had just identified something I had spent decades ignoring. I was alone. Destiny squeezed my hand gently. "Mr. Chen, you do not have to be scared. When my mommy died, I was really sad. I thought I would be alone forever. But Daddy told me that Mommy is still with me right here." I imagined her pointing to her chest. "In my heart. So you are not alone either, okay? We are here with you. And even when we leave, you can keep us in your heart." I had negotiated billion-dollar deals. I had outmaneuvered competitors and conquered markets. I had built a technology empire from nothing. But this child, this innocent 8-year-old girl, had just undone me completely. "You are not alone." 3 words I had never heard in all my years of wealth and power. After Destiny fell asleep in the visitor's chair, Marcus spoke in a hushed voice. "I apologize if she was too forward. She has her mother's heart. Always trying to take care of people." He was quiet for a moment. "You know, sir, I have been thinking about why I keep coming here. At first, I told myself it was because of the promise I made. But it is more than that." I waited, my entire being focused on his words. When Jen was dying, I felt so helpless. I could not save her. I could not stop what was happening. All I could do was sit there and watch the woman I loved slip away. His voice grew heavy. "Coming here, talking to you, it feels like I am getting a second chance. Not to save you. I know that is not up to me. But to be there for someone who needs it. To not let another person face the darkness alone." He stood up slowly. I heard him wake Destiny gently, heard their soft footsteps moving toward the door. "Sleep well, sir. Keep fighting. I know you are still in there." As the door closed behind them, I felt panic rising inside me. A panic I had not felt since I was a child, since before I had learned to build walls around my heart. I wanted to open my eyes. I wanted to thank them. I wanted to tell Destiny her drawing was beautiful, that her words had reached me in a way nothing else could. But fear held me paralyzed. Not the paralysis of injury, but the paralysis of terror. If I woke up now, what then? I would return to my old life. Surrounded by the same people who had circled my bed discussing how to divide my empire. I would have to face the board members, the fake friends, the crushing loneliness that had defined my existence. And worse, if I woke up, Marcus would know I had heard everything. Every intimate story. Every vulnerable confession. Would he be embarrassed? Angry? Would he ever come back? So I remained still. Trapped not by injury, but by my own cowardice. That night, after Marcus and Destiny had left, the door opened again. I heard voices I recognized. The board members had returned, along with lawyers and someone claiming to be a distant cousin I had not seen in 15 years. The doctors say there has been no improvement, Michael Brennan said. If he does not wake up in the next 24 hours, we should move forward with the contingency plan. As his closest living relative, a voice I vaguely recognized said, I believe I should be appointed guardian of his estate. I wanted to scream. This man, this cousin I barely knew, had never called me, never visited, never shown any interest in my life. Now he was here like the rest of them. The hospital is recommending transfer to a long-term care facility, another voice added. It would be better for everyone. We could continue operations without the uncertainty. Better for everyone except me. When they finally left, I lay in the darkness, more alone than I had ever been. My empire was crumbling. My body was broken. And the only people who had shown me genuine kindness were about to disappear from my life forever. The fifth evening, Marcus arrived with a heaviness in his step that I had not heard before. Mr. Chen, I have some news. The hospital administration told maintenance staff today that you are being transferred tomorrow to a facility upstate. He sat down slowly. This might be the last time I can visit you. My heart plummeted. I know you probably cannot hear me. The doctors keep saying there is no awareness. But I am going to talk to you anyway. One last time. He reached out and took my hand. It was the first time he had touched me since the night of the accident. I want to thank you, sir. You do not even know what you have done for me. Coming here, talking to you, it has helped me heal in ways I did not expect. His grip tightened slightly. When I lost Jen, I felt like a part of me died too. I went through the motions. Took care of Destiny. Went to work. But I was just surviving, not living. Sitting here with you, telling you about my life, about Jen, about everything. It reminded me that I am still here. That my story still matters. That maybe my words can make a difference, even if they are just spoken into the silence. He was quiet for a long moment. I could not save my wife. I held her hand until the very end, but I could not stop her from leaving. For a long time, I blamed myself. I thought maybe if I had done something different, worked harder, prayed more, she would still be here. His voice grew thick. But Jen taught me something before she died. She told me that love is not about saving someone. It is about being there. Just being present. Holding their hand in the dark. Even when you cannot fix what is broken. He exhaled slowly. I cannot save you, Mr. Chen. I do not have that power. But I hope that somehow, in some way, you know that someone was here. Someone cared. Not because of your money or your company, but because you are a human being. And every human being deserves to be seen. Marcus stood up and gently released my hand. Goodbye, sir. I hope you find peace. Whatever happens next, I hope you know that you mattered to me. He walked toward the door. His footsteps slow and heavy. Destiny prays for you every night. She asks God to help you wake up so you can meet her for real. She says everyone deserves to meet their friends face to face. The door handle turned. Take care of yourself. And if there is any part of you that can hear me, please know this. You are not alone. You were never alone. I have been right here. Always. The door clicked shut. In the suffocating silence that followed, I made my choice. I could not let him walk away. I could not spend the rest of my life being transferred to facilities, discussed by lawyers, picked apart by relatives who had never loved me, surrounded by people who only saw my bank account. I wanted to live. Not as a billionaire. Not as a CEO. But as a man who had finally learned what truly mattered. I wanted to see Destiny's drawing. I wanted to thank Marcus for every word he had spoken. I wanted to feel the sun on my face and know that I was more than my net worth. For the first time in decades, Alexander Chen wanted to be human again. And I would fight with everything I had to make it happen. I did not sleep that night. My mind raced through every moment of my 43 years. I saw myself as a young man, hungry and ambitious, believing that success would fill the emptiness inside me. I saw the deals I closed, the companies I acquired, the empire I built brick by brick. I saw the woman I married and the distance that grew between us as I chose work over love. I saw the friends I lost because I viewed every relationship as a transaction. I saw the walls I built around my heart, telling myself they made me strong. But now, lying in this hospital bed, I understood the truth. I had not built a fortress. I had built a prison. And I had locked myself inside it for 20 years. I thought about the executives who had stood over my bed calculating my worth in shares and stock options. I thought about the fake friends who had photographed my unconscious body for social media engagement. Not one of them had spoken to me the way Marcus had. Not one of them had seen me as anything more than a commodity. Then I thought about Destiny, that innocent child who had held my hand and said 3 words that had shattered every wall I had ever built. You are not alone. I thought about Marcus standing at the door, saying goodbye, believing I would never hear him. The gratitude in his voice. The love he had described for Jennifer. The philosophy he lived by. Being there. Just being present. He had thanked me. A janitor who earned barely enough to feed his daughter had thanked a billionaire for giving him purpose. I understood now what I had been missing my entire adult life. It was not money. It was not power. It was not the respect that came from fear or the admiration that came from wealth. It was connection. Simple, honest, human connection. And I would not let it slip away. The 6th morning arrived with the sound of footsteps and hushed voices outside my door. The transport team will be here in 2 hours, a nurse said. Has anyone from his family been notified? His cousin signed all the paperwork last night. Everything is in order. I heard the door open. Medical staff entered, checking monitors, adjusting equipment, preparing my body for transfer. Then I heard another voice at the doorway. A voice I recognized. Excuse me, I know I am not supposed to be here, but I was wondering if I could say goodbye. It was Marcus. The nurse hesitated. Sir, he is being transferred in less than 2 hours. We really do not have time for visitors. Please. Just 2 minutes. I was with him the night of the accident. I just want to say goodbye. A long silence followed. Then the nurse sighed. 2 minutes. That is all. Marcus walked into the room. I heard him approach the bed, heard his breath catch slightly as he looked at me. Mr. Chen, he said softly. I do not know if you can hear me. I have never known. But I had to come one more time. He moved closer. Meeting you, talking to you, it changed something in me. I was just going through the motions before. Working, coming home, taking care of Destiny. But sitting here with you reminded me why kindness matters. Why showing up for people matters. Even when they cannot thank you for it. His voice grew thick. I hope wherever they take you, someone talks to you. Someone holds your hand. Someone treats you like you are still here. Because I believe you are, sir. I believe you have been here the whole time. He took a step back. Goodbye, Mr. Chen. I will never forget you. And I hope that somehow you heard me. That somehow you knew you were not alone. I heard him turn toward the door. And something inside me shattered. Every fear, every doubt, every wall I had built came crashing down in a single moment. I could not let him leave. I could not spend whatever time I had left being shipped to a facility, surrounded by strangers, dying alone with no one who cared whether I lived or died. I wanted to live. Not as Alexander Chen the billionaire. Not as the CEO. Not as the man on the Forbes list. I wanted to live as someone who could love and be loved. Someone who could look at a child's drawing and mean it. Someone who could hold another person's hand without calculating what I might gain. I focused every ounce of my will on my right hand. The hand that Marcus had held at the accident scene. The hand that Destiny had touched while promising I was not alone. Move. Nothing happened. Move. My finger trembled. Just barely. Just enough. The heart monitor beeped slightly faster. Move. I pushed harder. I imagined Marcus walking through that door, disappearing from my life forever. I imagined spending years in a sterile room, trapped with no one who cared. My finger moved again. Then my wrist. Then my entire hand shifted against the bed sheet. The nurse gasped. "Doctor, he is moving." I did not stop. I poured everything I had into my eyelids, fighting against the weight that had held them closed for 6 days. Not from injury. From choice. From fear. Light began to seep through. Blurry at first, then slowly sharpening. The first thing I saw was the ceiling. White tiles. Fluorescent lights. The second thing I saw was Marcus Johnson, frozen in the doorway, staring at me with an expression of complete disbelief. My lips parted. My throat burned from days of disuse. I tried to speak, but only a ragged whisper escaped. "Wait." Marcus did not move. His eyes were wide, glistening. Doctors rushed into the room. Nurses shouted orders. Machines beeped and alarms sounded. But I ignored all of it. I kept my gaze fixed on the man in the doorway. I swallowed painfully, forcing my voice to work despite the agony. "I heard you." The words came out broken, barely audible. Marcus took a step closer. Then another. Until he was standing beside my bed. "You heard me." I managed the faintest nod. I struggled to form each word. "Everything." A breath. "Jennifer." Another breath. "Destiny." I winced from the effort. "You are not alone." Tears spilled down Marcus's cheeks. Not from embarrassment or shame. From something far deeper. I gathered the last of my strength for one more sentence. "Thank you." My voice was almost gone now. "For seeing me as human." Marcus reached down and took my hand. Just as he had done on the night of the accident. "You are welcome, sir," he said. "You are so welcome." 3 weeks later, I sat in a wheelchair in the hospital garden. Late autumn sun warmed my face as I watched leaves drift slowly to the ground. My recovery was slow. The doctors said it could take months before I regained full mobility. But I did not mind. For the first time in my life, I was not in a hurry. I had restructured the entire leadership of Chen Technologies. Michael Brennan and Richard Kim were no longer with the company. Neither were the board members who had plotted against me. My distant cousin's claim to guardianship had been denied. But more importantly, I had restructured my life. The Jennifer Foundation was now in its early stages. A charitable trust dedicated to supporting single parents and their children. Not because I wanted to save anyone or be seen as generous, but because I finally understood that money meant nothing if it did not touch lives. Marcus still worked at the hospital. I had offered him enough money to never work another day in his life. He had refused. "Mr. Chen, you already gave me something more valuable than money," he had said. "You listened. You heard my story. That is worth more than any check you could write." The only thing he accepted was a full scholarship fund for Destiny's education. Not charity. An investment in a child's future. I heard footsteps approaching and turned to see Destiny running across the garden toward me, a piece of paper clutched in her small hands. Marcus followed behind, that gentle smile on his face. Mr. Chen, I made you something new." She reached the wheelchair and thrust the drawing into my lap. It showed 3 figures standing beneath a bright yellow sun. A tall man with dark skin, a small girl with braids, and a man in a wheelchair with a big smile. "That is you," Destiny said, pointing at the figure in the wheelchair. "You are our friend now. Daddy says friends are people who show up for each other. And you showed up. So now we are friends forever." I looked at the drawing. Then at Destiny. Then at Marcus. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, Alexander Chen smiled. A real smile. Not the practiced expression I had worn for cameras and investors. A smile that came from somewhere deep inside me, from a place I had forgotten existed. Marcus stood beside the wheelchair, watching his daughter bounce excitedly. He caught my eye and nodded once. A silent acknowledgement of everything that had passed between us. We were not business partners. We were not client and service provider. We were something rarer, something more precious. We were friends. True friends. Built not on money or status, but on the simple foundation of being seen and heard. I looked up at the autumn sky, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face and the warmth of Destiny's hand in mine. I had spent my whole life believing that strength meant needing no one. That wealth meant lacking nothing. That success meant standing alone at the top. But lying in that hospital bed, pretending to be unconscious, I had learned the opposite. Sometimes what heals us is not being saved. It is being seen. Being heard. Being treated like a human being. And that, I now understood, could never be bought with money. I was worth $4.7 billion. But the richest moment of my life was sitting in a garden with a janitor and his 8-year-old daughter, looking at a crayon drawing of 3 friends beneath the sun. That was wealth. That was success. That was everything I had been searching for without knowing what I needed. I had built an empire. But Marcus and Destiny had given me something far more valuable. They had given me a life worth living.